Welcome to another episode of Voices of Inspiration. Today we have a special guest with us, Shubha Apte. She is an engineer by profession, a certified executive coach, and she is a management consultant with over 35 years of experience. She has written two books. The two books are in my hand. One is this Rising Beyond the Storm, a story of love, loss, and finding purpose through resilience. And second book is Mastering Leadership, real insight from coaching, mentoring, and experience. Her hobbies include gardening, traveling, and reading. So, a very warm welcome to Shubhaji in this studio in the Voices of Inspiration episode.
Thank you, Sushilji.
So, before we begin our discussion, tell us something about your two books, which we just mentioned.
Okay, actually, in the last 1 year, I have written about 5 books, and these two are the latest ones. Both actually are based on experiences, not just my own experience, but the stories and situations I have learned from coaching leaders at all levels, as well as mentoring leaders and individuals. So um, both these books are about one of them, the book on the fiction book, which is Rising Beyond the Storm, is basically a book about how we develop resilience and how we face challenges. Just because we are successful doesn't mean that we we don't have any uh, unexpected setbacks in life. And how do we kind of deal with these unexpected things in life? And unless we have that resilience in us, and when we and life always tests us for these resiliences, and it always kind of takes us to a destination which we would have never thought about. And that is how the protagonist in this particular book faces challenges, and she eventually finds her purpose in life, even after facing those challenges, and the resilience that she shows. In the second book, Mastering Leadership, which is actually based on my 35 years of experience in the corporate world, as well as more than a decade of experience in coaching and mentoring uh, eh, individuals at all levels. So uh, there are quite a few things that I have observed, that there are certain skills which are underdeveloped even at CXO levels, and this is something which, Sushilji, even you must have observed, because you have tremendous experience as a leader in the corporate world. So both these books are basically based on experiences, not just from my own life, but from what I have observed while dealing with people in the last 40 years, and coaching and training and mentoring leaders. So both these books are from experiences.
Right, right. I was just reading your this book, Mastering Leadership, and you have given wonderful insights. And as far as your personal experience, personal quotes, one of the quotes I liked very much was, "This is grow through what you go through." That was the wonderful quote. I liked it very much. And another quote in your book is, "Don't let your past wounds steal your future wins." So this
Yes.
is the basically the same dialogue when I teach through this Bollywood life skills. So same this thing in the Dear Zindagi movie, the same thing is being repeated by Dr. Jahangir Khan, played by Shah Rukh Khan. So he
Oh.
also says to this Kaira, this Alia Bhatt, that yes, don't let your past overpower you. So the
Yes.
same thing when I read, so I remember that movie itself. So please tell us that how do you do this coaching sessions, and how do they can overcome the past, because this is I feel that this is a process. So how you go through them that they can overcome the past and see the future itself.
One of the things that I generally, while mentoring and coaching individuals, and whenever they have this, some failures in the past, which kind of becomes limiting belief for them that, oh, I cannot do this now because I know I have failed in the past. So they don't have the courage to try it again. So somewhere I have to kind of show them situations that just because you have failed once, or just because you have had some negative experience, doesn't mean that experience is going to be repeated. And quite a few situations I've come across where and especially people who are first time managers, individuals who have just been promoted to some manager position, they fear that I have failed in the past taking care of my team. As a manager, will I be able to do it? Should I accept this, or should I not accept it? So you have to keep motivating them and pushing them in that right direction, encouraging them to take it up. Somewhere you have to convince them that failure does not mean that you will fail again and again. Failure actually helps you to reflect. You have to reflect on how you failed. What was it because of which you failed? What were the mistakes that you made, so that you could correct those mistakes and it may not be repeated again. So that is what I kind of do. And the biggest thing that people have liked when they talk to me is they are able to open up. They don't hold back certain things, even they have failed multiple times or they have made some mistakes. They come and ask, well, I did this, I know this is wrong, what do you think I should be doing? So when you have that, when and some people open up, because I give them that safe environment. I generally tell them, whatever you speak to me, don't worry, it is not going to your HR teams, or it is not going to go to your bosses. But you have to be open with your coach, whoever it is, whether it is me or some other coach. You have to be open with your coach to get the right solutions, and the solutions has to come from them, because as a coach, I can only guide them. I can't give them a solution, because if I give them a solution, they may not be able to implement it. But if they come up with their own solution, they're able to implement. So I have to kind of encourage them to open up. Then I have to kind of listen carefully to what they are saying and accordingly guide them. So, you know, that is where actually people have come back and said, okay, I will now go back again and try again. I don't think I will fail again. So you have to keep encouraging them somewhere to get them to get that regain that confidence that it is not going to fail again.
That's true. That's true, because it is the same thing as a patient goes to a doctor, and until
Exactly.
or unless he or she tells the complete things about himself, so a doctor is unable to prescribe. So
No.
similarly, definitely, when a person is mentee is coming to you, so all
Yeah.
the things when he or she discusses, so then
Yeah.
definitely you can guide them to explore the various ways in which they can overcome those things,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And a lot of times I recommend them, you should read this book, you should read these articles. Some people like reading, so they are very, practical about it. But some people don't like reading. That's where you have to kind of read it to them and show them that, look, these are the experiences that people had in life. So it is not necessary that, you should have that belief, because any kind of belief actually, um, it holds you back instead of helping you progress.
People's opinion, whether they are friends, whether they are neighbors, whether they are relatives, so they are not able to form their own opinion, rather than they form the opinion of others, that what the others will think, whether
Yeah.
it is the peer pressure or it is the relatives or their in their own family. So how do you uh, mentor them so that this other people's opinion matter, but how you say to them or guide them that bifurcate these things so that you can that other people's opinion do not affect you personally.
No, as long as what I try to tell them is, as long as you have reflected and you know what your passions are and what your, your desires are, then you have to kind of follow that. People, again, it is not that everybody kind of may discourage you from doing something, or people may have a different opinion about you, but I think you need to reflect about yourself first. Self awareness becomes very important. And a lot of times I have observed is that people are not aware of their own self, the emotions that they go through, or their own passions. uh, Maybe they do not see what their purpose in life is, which is not so easy to kind of find. But at least they should be self aware, that what are their own emotions when somebody says something, what is the kind of emotion that they go through, and unless they are self aware, it is very difficult for anybody to kind of um, you know think whether they should really go ahead and do what they are doing, or they should not do it just because people around them are saying, oh, don't do this, this is not good, you're not like this, you're like this, and all that. So self awareness is something which I, and it is not just for people who get impacted with others are saying, but any individual who comes to me for coaching and mentoring, the first thing I kind of tell them is learn to be self aware,
Great, great, great.
learn to understand what your own emotions are before kind of becoming judgmental about something.
Right, right. So, Shubhaji, another important question that comes is this struggling to say no. That is the very important aspect you have covered in your book. And I myself, though I am also a leadership coach, but I struggle a lot also while saying no to people. So, how do you teach them that what to do under those circumstances? And sometimes another aspect you have mentioned that sometimes we apologize even though we have not committed any mistakes. So
Yeah.
those are the aspects. How do you handle in your coaching sessions?
So, and this is a very common, thing that comes up. How do I kind of learn to say no to something? And that is again something to do with self-awareness, because if you are aware of how much is your plate loaded, if your plate is full and you really don't have any time, and you can't scale up like this, I mean, you need to have time to do things, then you have to kind of, one is you need to understand what your priorities are, right? I mean, a lot of time people think everything is a priority, and most of the time what happens is when you're working in the corporate world, every day there are 100 different tasks that come on your plate, but all of them may not be important. I mean, they may not be urgent. They could be important, but they may not be urgent. It is not something that you have to deliver it immediately the next day. So, all those things have to be really understood, because it is not just a question of saying no. People also have a problem of time management, because with so many things happening, and in today's digital world, this is becoming more and more common, because, the 9 to 5 time has extended from 9 to probably, one doesn't know. I mean, it can go up for 24 hours, 48 hours, you don't know. So a lot of time people say, how do I say no to something which I can't do because I'm already loaded with so much? So one has to kind of understand that if the if somebody is giving you some work, and which is not a priority for you, or which is not important for you, or where you might have to invest a lot of time and you don't really have that time, you should apologize and say, look, it is how you communicate also becomes a thing, right? I mean, you're not simply saying no because you're just kind of brushing them aside or something. Yeah, you're saying no because your plate is already full of a lot of things that you have to do. So somewhere you have to kind of apologize and say, look, you have a deadline which I may not be able to meet. And if you are willing to extend the deadline, maybe I could help. But if the deadline is something which is a priority, I may not be able to help. So kindly apologize, and say no. You're saying no does, because what people think is, if I say no, I may not get the opportunity again. That shouldn't happen. So as long as you're able to openly communicate and be authentic in what you're saying, I don't think that can become a problem. I mean, I have faced this a lot of times, and I've gone back and said no, and I've told them the reason I'm saying no. See, as long as you can be open about why you're saying no, the person who is coming with the job will also understand, and a lot of times it happens that the same person who has given you 10 different jobs is now giving you another 5 jobs, but you have to tell that person that, look, you've given me 5, but I can't do this because I'm still working on the 10 different tasks that you've given me. So tell me which is the priority for you, and I will do those. So as long as you know one is open about it, saying no should not become a problem. People fear that if I say no, will it kind of put a wrong impression about me? Will this person never approach me again? Those kind of things, that fear holds people back. And that's where they think, how can I say no? Or if some senior leader has asked him to do something, how can I tell him no? This is the first time he's come to me with something, and how can I say no? But then you have to find a solution for it, you know so
Right, right. So that is the beautiful thing you have said, that if you tell them the reason to say no, so then probably they will understand that why you are saying no. So and that reason uh, tells itself, yes, you can say no, because everybody understands that if this is the reason, then they would also be in a position that they would have not done the same thing which they are asking us to do. So
exactly.
yes,
And they
that.
might come up with some solution also,
Mm.
which you don't know. I mean, they could also come up with a solution and say that, okay, if this is what is happening and you're saying no because you have so many things, then maybe we could delay the work, and or some solution even they could offer.
Right, right. So another important aspect which you have covered is walking away from the toxic relationships
Yes,
for pursuing one's goals.
yes.
So can you just tell us some from your personal experience, that means was there any time that when you walked away from these toxic relationships to pursue what you wanted to pursue in life?
Oh, yes. I mean, uh, and one great example has been um, when I was working with one of the organizations where I was leading a team for, the software re-engineering, the process re-engineering, basically. And uh, there were, because that particular organization, though it was a very well-known brand, the software teams, both in the US and in India, were not following any particular process. And that was creating a lot of issues because the quality was suffering, and because they were working on applications which were basically, it was a captive center, so they were working on manufacturing applications, in-house applications, not for services. But because they were manufacturing applications, a lot of time it used to cause issues. And so I used to kind of say, okay, if you're not following the process, and they wanted to kind of get certified for process like CMM, CMMI, and all that, and I said, you're not going to get certified if you don't follow the process. If there is an existing process and if that needs to be improved, you can improve that. But there has to be a standardized process across the organization, because generally what happens in captive centers is, and in this particular company we used to follow the sun model, where on a particular application the team in the US used to work during their daytime, whereas the teams in India used to work in their daytime. So the same code, it used to be kind of developed by both the sides. Now, if you don't follow the process and if you don't really capture the requirements correctly from what the stakeholder is saying, then you tend to make mistakes. So, for all this, the requirement gathering process or understanding process, the testing process, everything has to be followed. And there were people in my own leadership group who were against it because they wanted their teams to deliver. And they used to kind of constantly argue with me. And that is where I stayed away from them. I said, if you argue with me, I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm going to make sure that your teams follow the process. And that kind of a toxic environment can become very difficult to stay away from, because people at that level, at leadership level, when they are toxic, you have to kind of keep that communication going, but at the same time you have to stay away and ensure that you are more focused on what you're trying to do, and seek help from somebody who can ensure that they are not their toxic behavior is not you know um, kind of um, stopping you in your work or stopping the progress of the project that you have taken up. So these kind of experiences I have, and challenges I have kind of experienced a lot in my career. So that is where I kind of come to the conclusion that keep toxic people away. Stay as far as away you can from them. And even in my personal life or even in my corporate life, I generally, once I have a bad experience with somebody, I kind of stay away from them. I don't, uh, have anything to do with them.
Right, right, right. That's great. So another this when I was reading this book, and this is the favorite chapter, means for me at least, that this how you are balancing this motherhood and career.
Hmm.
So that is the wonderful, and I got many insight in this chapter. So definitely, I recommend this audience to go through the whole book, and particularly this chapter where this um, people have generally concerns about whether to pursue career or whether to pursue this motherhood. And you have wonderfully this clarified, and all those are some creative ways also you have given, and I must appreciate it. And I want readers to this audience to buy the book and go through these things, and these are really very beneficial. So my
Right.
question to you is that there is yes, there are creative ways, and research also shows that majority of the women after the birth of their first child, they quit their job,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
now the thing is that there is a, you have mentioned about the support of the parents,
Hmm.
of parents-in-law, and
Yes.
the neighbors, friends, relatives, and there are creative ways that they can take them to the office also. Those kind of situation you have explained. But my
Yeah.
question is that nowadays there are nuclear families. So when
Yes.
there are nuclear families and where there is no such support, so then how do you recommend that under those situations what they should do?
No, even in my own case, I mean, we have been a nuclear family since my son was born, and um, uh, because of my husband's transferable job, we moved from places to places. In fact, when he was 3 months old and I took him to Delhi, um, I was new to Delhi. He was, of course, a 3 months baby. But what happens is, why people, and especially women, see, mom guilt is something which is common to everyone. Everyone has it. It is not that something which is bad. It is there and it has to be dealt with. however you take care of your child, it has to be dealt with. But the thing is, most women hold back from asking from help. Whether you are asking for help from your parents or your in-laws or your neighbors, um, you have to kind of ask for help, because if you don't ask for help, they think that asking for help is bad. People will think, oh, why is she allowing her child to suffer at the expense of her own, what you call ambition. But that's not the case. Asking for help is, people is not going to kind of refuse, saying that, why don't you take care, why are you asking for help? That doesn't normally happen. So one thing is, you have to ask for help, whether you're asking your parents to come and stay with you for that limited time, or you're asking your in-laws to come and stay, or if you have good neighbors, you can ask them to help you, and most people come forward and help. But if you don't ask for help, nobody comes forward, and then you are forced to leave your job. The other thing is, when it could be possible that for a few months, yeah, you kind of take a sabbatical, or you kind of quit your job. But after a couple of months, you need to get back to your career, because you can't afford to kind of give up your ambition. And the other thing is, you're not making your child suffer, because you have somebody to look after the child. You have asked for help. It could be your parents, it could be your in-laws, it could be your neighbor. You have kind of put them into a creche, or a play school, or whichever facility you have close by. And the other thing is, what I realized from my own experiences, the children become independent at a very early age, because they also learn from your experience. And there have been times when I have actually taken my son along with me, when I went to Singapore, or when I went to other countries or other cities on a business travel. So one can do that as well. There are ways to kind of manage it. It shouldn't become that you have to give up everything just because you have to raise your kids. Because if you do that, then, and if you stay back after a year or two, you will find that you have lost a lot of things, and people have moved forward. And then you become even more kind of that setback um, becomes a mental issue for you. So, it becomes an emotional and mental problem. So, one has to kind of ensure that one is asking for help. And I tell all women, I mean, I mentor a lot of women, and I tell them, say, look, ask for help. You know, uh, don't hold back asking for help, because if you ask, only then people will give you. Nobody comes and helps you if you don't. But if you go and ask your parents, or if you go and ask your in-laws, I'm sure they will understand it. So that becomes, and the biggest point I think women should remember is that you're actually helping your children grow as well and become independent. Because while they are observing you, they also, a lot of time children gain knowledge by observing their parents. And they get motivation by observing the parents. See, my mother has done this. She's taken care of me even when she was working. She's taken care of my grandparents even while she was working. So, all these things influence the kids as well, and influences them in the positive way, not the negative way. So they also feel that they should be doing it. They should become independent. They should not. And once they become independent, they also look upon you, rather than, thinking that, oh, you have not been a good mother. They actually praise you. They actually look upon you rather than looking down on you, right? So
Sure, sure.
the
That
other thing,
I understand that definitely the key is to ask. Most of the times, what happens is that when you need help, we don't ask and we presume that other will understand. So
Yes.
instead of that other will understand, we should ask for help actually,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
definitely this you will get the help. That's
And
it.
solutions will be there. I mean, it is not as if you will not get the solution. And even, sometimes you have to be, um, even within the office, within your colleagues or within your HR teams or to your boss, you should keep them informed that, look, I have a child who is young, and there could be times when I could have some problem. And now, of course, even in our times, there was no concept of work from home. Today, at least, the mothers have that benefit where they can work from home. So even if it is a nuclear family, working from home gives them that advantage of looking after the children as well as working. But asking for help, even if you're working from home, asking for help is something which everybody should do. It is not something, it's not a wrong thing to ask for help.
Right. So Shubhaji, your two books are being this displayed at this Chinar Book Festival.
Yes.
So what do you have to say about this?
I mean, I am actually really thrilled to see that the books are getting displayed. And while I cannot travel myself there personally, but I'm really looking forward to people visiting the stall and looking the book and taking them for reading. So I'm excited about the whole thing.
So thank you so much, Shubhaji, for interacting with us. And these are two books in my hand. This
Yes,
These are two books
yes.
written by Shubhaji, and these will be at display at Chinar Book Festival in Srinagar. So
Really grateful to you, for giving me this opportunity to display my books in the book
my
festival.
philosophy is simple, that I want to help the authors to build their brand. So visibility, as far as possible, you can get the visibility, because wherever I go, so definitely physically when they see the book, so the difference is there are still people, Shubhaji, who want to feel the book rather than buying online.
Yes, yes,
When they feel the book, they see the book and interact, and these two books are wonderful. And I also read those books, because
yeah,
there are certain books which are unknown to the world, but
yes,
stuff is creative. These just mastering leadership. This book, I learned many things through this book. So
yeah.
by helping, I am also learning also. So thank
That
you
is
so
great.
much
In
for
fact, your book is also has a lot of your personal experiences, which were like eye-opening to me as well. So I have learned a lot also from from your book.
So thank you so much for coming to our this studio for Voices of Inspiration. And any last minute message you would like to give to the audience?
I think the only message that I can give the audience is, the books that I write typically are based on my own experiences and the stories and situations that I hear from people that I coach across different levels and different industries, and people that I have met in the last so many years of my life. So basically, and things are, technology is evolving, things are changing, situations are changing, but there are certain basic things that, uh, whether it is soft skills or some skills that we as individuals need to have, they still remain important. Even in the age of AI, humanity is important, kindness is important, emotions are important. So, and most of my books cover these topics. So, mm, that is what I would, and I would kind of want them to read my books, and I hope they enjoy them and give me a feedback, which also helps me because every feedback I look at positively, because my next book uh, becomes much better when I implement those feedbacks.
Great, great. Shubhaji, I also this consider that you have got 35 years of experience, and people just within a week, if they read your book, so they can get experience of 35 years in a week. So
Correct.
I recommend people this reading books is so powerful, and as you can consolidate this 35 years of experience and get those experience within a week or at the most within a month.
Yeah.
So thank you for being part of this Voices of Inspiration. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the invite, Sushilji. Thank you.